Futurama, Season 11, Episodes 3 and 4. Two new episodes that were very entertaining and funny, but feel like they should have been released a year or two ago. Hello, everybody, this is Mike from Tree's Company, here to do another review for the new season of Futurama on Hulu. This time, I am talking about Episodes 3 and 4. Before I get into any spoilers or details about the plot, my overall feelings for these episodes are that they are the best two episodes of the season so far. You can see some of the old writing and humor back in the show, but the subjects and the ideas that they explore and go through with these episodes feel a little dated. And like the scripts were written over a year or maybe 2 years ago, before the new show, or before the show would have come back, before they knew that the show was coming back. Feels like ideas the creators had and now are like finally making a reality. They're finally writing them, or like they were planned out at least, or sitting on the toilet going, "Oh, that would have made it." Thinking about stuff and going, "Oh, this has been a great episode of Futurama," and made note of it, and now writing it. And this makes it feel dated and almost like you're watching an older episode from the past. Like if you just like you're rewatching the whole show over again, and like it never got canceled. Like this is like episodes that they should have made in 2021, you know, 2019, something like that. And yeah, with all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and go into spoilers. So thank you very much for watching this far. If you want to go ahead and leave, no one will blame you. And here we go. So, episode 3, season 11 of Futurama. This whole entire episode is about crypto. It's about crypto. It's they go to California and everything's old timey because they are doing so much crypto, all the power is going to servers, so they don't have electricity to spend on like water and plumbing and all the other heat, lights, everything like that. So it's all back to old timey stuff, which I think is actually a pretty funny and a pretty good explanation of why they're going, and it's old timey. And it's the professor is trying to get to literally mine materials that make processors for crypto mining instead of mining for the crypto itself. And so this is why part of this is why it feels dated to me. Like, do people still make crypto jokes? Is I don't know if South Park did it when they first came back with making fun of Matt Damon and the fortune favored the brave and how everybody lost a bunch of crypto money. It feels like that's what I'm saying. It feels like this should have come out a year ago. But we probably had the idea. They probably saw the South Park episode and had their own Futurama take to it. But then they learned the show was coming back. It took like another year of writing and polishing and recording and animating and all that, and now it's out, and it just feels like it fell flat. It's a little too old. It takes too long for these episodes to come out. It's still funny. It's still funny. It's still good. It's still a good Futurama take on the crypto thing, but it just feels like it should have come out a year ago or 2 years ago. You can see the love of science back in this episode a lot more than some of the other ones. They try they do element jokes. They do a lot of element jokes. They do some mining jokes. Like they have the Borax kid return, who has like no consistent character with all. This is the most he's ever been in an episode. The most like character development you have of the Borax kid. He's been bit stuff in whenever he appears, but it's like you never. It I don't, it seems like the same character, but also not the same character. But I still think it works. They also bring back Roberto, stabbing robot. Ha ha! And he's got a revolver that shoots knives. Um, but in Futurama, they're usually pretty consistent with characters dying and having some sort of science way to bring them back. And I thought Roberto melted in like the last season or two. So I thought Roberto was like dead. I don't think they ever did an explanation of how he came back, but he's just back. But that's not a big deal. It's just it seems very unfuturama that they didn't have some sort of line about that to like some throwaway line saying, "Oh, he's like, I thought you melted," and him just be like, "I brought myself back like Terminator" or something like that. I don't know. If you saw the trailer, um, you know that Bender gets a donkey. So this is the episode where Bender gets the donkey. I thought the donkey was good. It, the jokes hit or miss with the donkey, but overall I thought it was good. This was really the first episode of the season because I know they don't necessarily do this very often, but this is the one where there was really a lot of subplots to this one or sub stories that eventually come together at the end. One big one, there was the professor's really much just into the mining thing to pay off the robot mafia. You have Fry with the Borax kid being the whelp, and then slowly learning that the Borax kid is like a cheater and ruining his eyes of him as a hero. You have Hermes and Conrad doing a father-son story of where Conrad likes, the dangerous outlaw of the robot guy until the robot guy uses him and he doesn't like him anymore. And then, yeah, Amy and Professor are pretty much just doing the mining stuff. So there's multiple stories, plots going through. It's first episode of the season when they do it, and Futurama they do it well. I think they do it well. You kind of start to see some rehashed jokes or small twisted versions of old jokes from other episodes in this one. They sometimes and they sometimes don't. I can't tell if it's just like fanfare to be like, "Hey, remember when they used to say stuff like this? Remember the one time they said stuff like that?" And it works. Doesn't always work for me. Sometimes it feels forced. Sometimes it feels like a good organic in there. Like how Fry was like, "Bye Robot Mafia" or "Hi Robot Mafia." They did do that, and it was okay. They keep doing a lot of good news, bad news, everyone at some point in the episode every single time. Jokes about how like Zoidberg just eats everything. It's consistent as the characters, and sometimes it works, sometimes it feels like a weird fanfare redone thing. How they combined all the sub stories at the end, I liked with a little bit of the twist. I thought it was really good. I thought that one was really clever, especially for crypto, especially for robots. I won't get into what it is that much in spoilers in case you want to watch it. Um, if there is one part where the end, this will be a spoiler, where Conrad, Limbo's dumb, and at the end he limbos to save Hermes. And the whole thing is that he can limbo on walls because he's got shoes that are like anti gravity or something that allows him to just walk on any surface. And Hermes is kind of like, "Oh, that's my boy," and then also proceeds to walk on the wall, but he doesn't have the fancy shoes, and they don't show him turning on shoes. It's just like so Hermes can just walk up walls. They dropped the ball on some science consistencies, and I've noticed that a lot this season. They haven't been as like on it for science and consistency and things like that. Stuff just kind of happens. They do. It feels like sometimes stuff is rushed through, but overall, they don't completely take you out. You just kind of, you just kind of sit and be like, "Huh? Oh, well, it's Futurama. Bender said a funny thing." And that's pretty much it for episode 3. Episode 4. This episode is all about Dune, and I know Dune 2 is coming out later this year or next year, depending on if the writer's strike delays it. I'm not 100% sure on all that. But the first Dune not even the really really old one. The first like modern remade Dune, that was like 2020, 2021. Whenever HBO was putting out movies on either both on HBO Max or onto uh, theaters. It was one of those years, but it was a while ago. So that's why it also again feels like it should have come out. Like they saw Dune, the creators, and they had an idea about how to do a bunch of Dune references in the show. But Dune, the first Dune came out, and it's got kind of a cult following, and a lot of the big nerd and YouTube review cycles. It's very popular, but I'm not sure just how big Dune really is. Like I know Futurama does kind of have his tight group fans, and a lot of those fans will know what Dune is. But I don't think people who go like, "Oh, Futurama's back from their childhood, I'll check it out," and they see the Dune reference. I don't know if it's gonna fully land for them. It feels like this. It shouldn't have been this long from the first Dune releasing to get it, even with Dune 2 coming out. It's I just think the timing is off. And it feels like this was an idea they had a while ago, and now they just really want to do it because they thought the Dune jokes were clever, and they were clever. This episode, Nibbler gets worms, and the somewhat reveal midway, almost to the end, is that it's the same worms that Fry got, um, way back ago when he got it from the egg sandwich, and they were making him smart and buff, and it was impressing Leela and all that. The same worms, but they're making Nibbler dumb. And the whole thing is Nibbler's litter box has the worms. So even though they're using ivermectin to kill the worms keep reinfecting him every time he goes litter box because Leela doesn't change litter box because it's from the litters from his planet's ancestral pooping grounds. Yeah. Uh yeah. But it's very similar. It's basically rehashing a lot of the that episode from Fry getting the worms into this and putting in and trying to make it so it's Dune, so they can do Dune references. They do the litter box so they can shrink down, go to in the litter box, and it looks like they're walking on sand. And then boom, they do dung beetles, and it's not Dune, it's Dune. Gah. Not dung, it's Dune. Gah, because Dune jokes. You would think in classic Futurama they would pay homage to that. They would be self-aware of that. They'd have something like when they're saying, "Oh, there's got worms and it's affecting the body, and we can't get rid of them, so we have to shrink down and fight them." You think you'd have Amy in the background go like, "This sounds very familiar, like we've done this before," and do off-color jokes like one-off lines like that, one-off jokes like that. The professor has a ray, a shrinking ray thing. I think Amy would be like, "Why don't we just use the thing last time that we used last time to shrink chips to get into Fry and all that?" Or like it was robots or something. Like, yeah, they did like miniature robots that went in the whole thing. But it's like it feels very unfuturama to not be self-aware and pay homage if they ever do an idea close to another idea. The worms keep reinfecting him because they don't change the litter box thing. It was just thrown in there, runaway line, not really explained that much other than Leela going, "He'll die because it's litter from his ancestral pooping grounds." And it's like, this just doesn't make a whole lot of sense of like, okay, you've seen Nibbler poop in other episodes. I know it's a cartoon, I know it's Futurama. They don't do everything consistent. But I just did not like the explanation of why they couldn't change the litter. It's also reverse that the worms are making Nibbler dumb and not smart. So, and their explanation of that isn't very good either. It's just like it's that the worms are also infected with parasites. They don't have their beneficial juices But they also establish that Nibbler's getting dumber because the worms are eating his brain. So it's like, what? They don't have the nourishing juices, but also just stop eating the brain. And they don't have the worm. The worms are just something like, I don't know why he's getting dumber. Like they don't seem like they have the motivation to eat brains. Like almost like if they were zombie versions of the worms or something. No, they're just the worms, and they're like, we don't even want to infect them. We just like living in the dune. We don't want to go infect other people. So it's like, so how is Nibbler getting reinfected if all the worms say we don't want to infect anybody, we want to stay on the dune? But then that just it throws another like, what? So what a weird line. You could have done anything else. You could have done literally anything else. And again, they're doing callbacks in this episode. There's one or two throw line, and it just sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. It did feel more like classic Futurama though, with it being like, here's Futurama doing Futurama things, and then we'll throw in a movie reference. Like when they did the Willy Wonka stuff, Slurm. I like it when they can do their own thing and then reference modern day movies and entertainment. And it felt like classic Futurama, but then also sometimes not. Sometimes it didn't land. Not like peak seasons like 1 through 4 Futurama, but like the later years Futurama. Nibbler gets high and talks about everything connecting in the universe, and that didn't make a whole lot of sense because he's just like, he does a very good food chain thing, and then he's like, and then there's the worms, and they eat my brain, and so since they do that, I'm just gonna let them do that and become dumb. It's like it wasn't connected to anything else. But he's like, everything's interconnected, but they didn't actually connect the worms to anything other than the fact that they eat his brain. Like, what? So it's like, no, they're not connected. You can just kill the worms. Just kill the worms. You're fine. But Noodle's like, no. And so they end up killing parasites that are on the worms so the worms can make him smarter. But he still has the worms, so shouldn't he be getting exponentially smarter all the time? No, don't matter. Just don't think about it. And the parasites that are on the worms, there's these little crab guy things. And the worms didn't know they were infected. They look at this whole magic getting high thing, and you see the worms on them, and see the crabs on them. And the worms are like, oh god, ew, that's so disgusting. And then literally seconds later, they go shake them off and stomp on them. They went from not being able to see them to being able to see them when they're shuck off and big enough to step on them to kill them. Inconsistent. How did the worms not know they were infected? They were invisible to the eye, now visible, and the worms just weren't barely in the episode. This whole episode felt rushed. Like they're like we have to do it in 22 minutes, but we want to get all these Dune references in and all these other jokes that they didn't like structure the story good enough. They just had these weird outlier things like, oh, and now we want to do this callback to these worms that Fry had episode. See, you remember old episodes, isn't it great? You remember old episodes of Futurama. It's like you could have just had that be completely different worms that just looked like dune worms, and then you killed them with the ivermectin. Didn't have to be a callback. Could have done just a Futurama y thing with. You can make new Futurama without referencing old Futurama and also Dune. You know. I will say though, props to them. They referenced ivermectin and they didn't make a horse tranquilizer or a horse dewormer or crazy people taking it during COVID reference or anything like that. It was just he has worms, so we're gonna put ivermectin in squirt guns, and that's gonna kill, and so we can shoot and kill the worms with that. I think it's perfectly fine. But yeah, so that's more or less episode 4. I know I did a lot of shitting on it, because those are the easiest things to talk about. But overall, they were still, I think, the better 2 episodes of the season. Still enjoying the season, even though it still sometimes feels like old episodes. and I sometimes I'm sometimes have trouble staying focused on the episodes. I still enjoy them, even though it feels like I'm rewatching them or putting them on as background noise while I do something else. They're not as engaging as I was hoping they'd be, but they're still good. I think still worth a look. It's still nice to have some fresh Futurama, even though it isn't perfect. It isn't exactly what I maybe wanted from it, but it's still good. You can still see some of that magic there. It's just hopefully they get another season or they can start it now and get their feet back under them and be good. This is kind of like a dust the cobwebs off season, and I think they're doing okay. I do think they're doing okay. But that said, if you're still here, thanks for watching this long. I'm sorry I rambled on and on and on, but that's what I do when I talk about movies and TVs. But thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Comment down below. Let me know what you think about these episodes or just the season so far, and any thoughts you have about the show. Really, thanks very much for watching. Bye.